Hi, everybody, and welcome to Beebe Book Buzz. My name is Karen Stern, and I am from the Reference Department, along with my two colleagues, also from the Reference Department, Bridget Black and Beth Radcliffe. And as always, we're here to talk to you about the books that we are all reading, and in hopes that we can help you find your next great read. And today we have a mystery and a fantasy and a heist novel. So we have a little bit of a variety, different time periods, different things. And we're going to start with Beth.
Okay, so my book today is Stormy Weather by Paula Woods. And this is about Charlotte Justice. She's an LA cop who's been in robbery homicide force for about 13 years. When the news of the death of a pioneering African-American director comes into the station, it gets dismissed as a natural death. But Charlotte's sixth sense is tingling, and she wonders if there isn't a connection between his death and the death of all these other black men in geriatric care who were killed by who's called the Angel of Mercy. But she has several things working against her in trying to investigate this. One, her racist, sexist supervisor doesn't want her to investigate. Her Latina cop partner, she has tension with her, and Charlotte feels like her colleague is sucking up to said supervisor. And then the third reason is that if he was murdered by the Angel of Mercy, then the department is going to look like they have mud on their face because they either arrested the wrong man or he had an accomplice.
So because that guy's already in jail.
Because that guy's already in jail, exactly.
Okay.
And he made some comments about having an accomplice, but they weren't able to find anything. So this may be somebody, his accomplice did this other one.
Right, okay. So there's the mystery.
Right. So all of those things, and the author is able to give all this riveting historical material on African Americans in the film industry. And some of that comes from visiting her family, which she calls her family house the Nut House. So that provides a lot of downtime, there's funny anecdotes the family tells. It's usually lighthearted, juicy relative telling stories. Advice giving. She gives wonderful descriptions of LA, and I especially liked it because she goes into the different African American enclaves. So it's not just the white suburbs, it's different areas of African American neighborhoods. Were you going to ask something?
No.
Okay.
Up to you.
This is definitely a slow burn. It goes along with all the research and interviews that have to happen in a police procedural. And there's also a little bit of a romantic tension with handsome and smart Dr. Aubrey Scott, which I just think is a great name for a handsome doctor.
That's like that's a movie name. That's the name a handsome doctor would have in a movie.
That's right. So the book inspired me to watch some early African American films. And I watched a book by that has the same title, Stormy Weather. They're not related, but they are.
Oh, right.
That cast is all African American.
Right.
And it was wonderful. It starred Lena Horne and Bill Bojangles Robinson. And it featured a profile of those wonderful dancing duo brothers, the Nicholas brothers. They're just amazing.
Right.
I would see the movie just for that.
Right.
And then it also had some amazing musicians like Cab Calloway and Fats Waller.
Wow, that's an all-star cast.
It was so cool.
Well, and Stormy Weather's the title of a song too, right?
And
was it based on something based on that?
Well, the director who dies in this is scripting another documentary entitled Stormy Weather.
Got it.
So that's another aspect of the mystery that's going on there.
So it's a kind of is it noirish, or is it just pretty straightforward police procedural?
It's a police procedural. It's a boiler Hard-boiled.
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 Okay.
Although it doesn't have as much violence as those do, but it does have some violence. And I wonder if some of the other ones don't have more violence, but this one only had a little bit.
And is this a series?
It is a series. This is the second in the series. I just happened to pick it up. I think it would be good to read the first, but you can get away with it. I did, and just that there's some historical. And then there are two more, so there's a total of 4, with this being the second.
Yep.
I just wanted to mention the other movie I saw was called Introducing Dorothy Dandridge, who was an early African-American actress. And that was a fictionalized documentary, which was really good. And I had heard of her, but I hadn't really seen her, so that was fascinating too. And cool. She mentions a lot of background people, so that was really fascinating.
You didn't happen to find any of these on our streaming services, did you? Shameless plug.
Yeah, actually, there were some that she mentions that I did find on Canopy.
On Canopy,
but,
right. So.
But the 2 that I watched, one was on Amazon and one was on Netflix, I believe.
Right.
Yeah. No, HBO Max.
HBO Max, okay.
But yes, Canopy does have some.
But Canopy has some, yep.
Yeah.
Canopy being the one that you get free through the library, so
yeah.
Don't forget about that.
Yes.
Come and ask us about it at the reference desk.
I wanted to make one more note that she does use the N-word, so if that is a trigger, stay away from it.
All right. Sounds good.
Oh, and I wanted to tell some read-alikes, a couple of read-alikes. Rachel Hall does a really good read-alike because she writes about an African-American homicide detective who lives in LA.
Keep going. Sorry.
It's part of the series Eloise Norton.
Right.
And the other book that I wanted to mention, did you have a question about that one?
No, I was just thinking of Joe E. Day. Doesn't he write in, or sorry.
Is he?
Doesn't he write?
His books are set in LA.
In LA,
yes.
right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so this is a nonfiction one that Bridget just bought. Colorization, 100 Years of Black Films in a White World. So I was breezing through this too, and it's very readable and had a lot of good background that I was supplementing reading my book with. So.
Nah.
Yes, Bridget bought this for the library. We should
Yes,
say, not just for herself.
It's not my book. It is in the library's collection. You can come see all of our film books, which have many. I also recently just bought a book about history of African American films at the Oscars.
Oh, cool. So there you go. All kinds of stuff to read around. Great. Thank you, Beth. And we're going to move on to something different. I have a fantasy novel here for those of you who are George R.R. Martin fans and N.K. Jemisin fans, because it's that big fantasy. This book is called Black Sun, and it's the first of a duology, so that's 2 books, Black Sun and Fevered Star, which are part of the Between Earth and Sky series, and they're by Rebecca Roanhorse. And the reason I mentioned Martin and Jemisin is because, as I said, these are big worlds. The world of this book is big. It's filled with clans and intrigue and, political intrigue, that kind of stuff. Courts that are feuding and clans that are feuding, and there's complexity in the world. It's not just set in one place. People move around and come together and go apart. And there's magic and there's adventure. I mean, it's not all magic. It's not like solid. It isn't a world of magic, but there's this ancient magic that people have left behind, but is starting to come back. So, but where it differs a little bit and where it's kind of new and interesting is where, Martin you think of as a sort of one of those, and a lot of fantasy writers write in a world that sort of suggests maybe like medieval Europe or the Celtic cultures or the Norse sort of cultures, those things. And then Jemison writes, like, again, many other big fantasy writers, writes about worlds that are other than ours completely, right? This one is actually set in something that is suggestive of pre-Columbian Americas. So it doesn't really say where it is. It's not a place that we know, but it certainly the language. They're navigating by the stars in our sky. They're using plants with names like sage and wild lettuce and things like that in their medicine, and the names and the sounds of the language kind of suggest Mayan, Incan, North American tribes, that kind of thing. So it's set in a place where most fantasies have not been set. And that makes it exciting. It does have a wide cast of characters. There's even a list in the front, and there are maps. And if any of those things put you off, don't let them, because the characters really do lead the way. And this is a story that is driven by.
I like maps.
You like maps, okay.
Personally,
some people don't.
love a fantasy novel that is a maps and appendix type situation, where it's like there's some maps at the beginning and a long list of characters at the back. Oh, then we've got it. That's what
And I have to say, she lays the list out very clearly. Like, I didn't find this one hard. You know how some of them, they kind of boggle your mind, the family trees and all that kind of stuff. This one didn't strike me that way. Anyway, the kind of the backdrop is there are 4 clans. There's in the city, the great ancient city of Tova, and they are the carrion crow, the winged serpents, the water striders, and the golden eagles. Okay, and besides them, there's also a sort of underclass called the dry earthers, who don't really live in the cities. They live in that sort of hinterlands, and they're considered sort of other. And then there are also the Teak, who are the people of the waters. So they're more associated with the oceans, and they also are a little bit suspect by the major groups, and certainly the major groups consider themselves sort of elite, and they are governed by a set of priests, a sun priest and some other priests who are drawn mostly from their clans. And so they have supplanted any old magic that I mentioned before. And they are like
the priests have the magic, so the people don't, just the priests.
They don't even really have their magic is not really, they are more secular. They govern politically. There's some religious sort of stuff, but it's not magic. And they are called the Watchers, that set of priests, okay? So anyway, that's the kind of the background. The storyline is that there is a child who has been brought up to be the crow god reborn, and his name is Serapio, and his mother has used ancient magic and sacrifice to create in him the god, recreate the god, and let him live in the vessel of this boy, right? And he's going to avenge the Carrion Crow people who have been wronged by the Watchers at some point in the past in a massacre. So he makes his way across the sea, and as he does, he's guided by Shiala, who is this lovely Teak sea captain, and as they get to know each other, she's got a little bit of magic in her too, and they connect, and there's a love story there. And that love story is unfinished in the first book, and I'm now reading the second book. I'm not finished yet, and it's still not finished in the second book. So that's definitely one of the arcs that takes you through, is their connection. But he is obviously on the road to avenge his people, which means he's intent on killing all of the Watchers, the governing class. And so the third character that kind of matters in this scheme of things is the Sun Priest herself, and her name is Narampa, or Nara, and she's come from this underclass of people, which is unusual. And her goal is to get rid of all of the elitism, to bring the Watchers back to the people. She wants them to stop being corrupt, and she's trying to do that from this place of power. But he is coming to kill her, and this is the arc that's coming together and culminates at the end of the book, but not in the way that you are led to believe that it will. So there's a lot of machinations and political stuff, and then the big finale, which is very dramatic and a little bit violent. So yeah, it's a great story. If it all seems complicated and overblown, what I love about this is the voice. It's really simple. It's very just simple and compelling storytelling, kind of as if, not as if you were telling a child a story, but it's in the way of, I don't know, sitting around at night and just talking about the old stories, that kind of storytelling. Very easy and accessible, and you get caught up and taken away. And the setting, the Tova, there's like this soaring city in the cliffs with bridges, sort of floating bridges almost, joining the different parts of it and the different parts of where the different clans live. It's very, she feeds you all of this along the way. It's not like paragraphs of description and then you get some story. It's like the story is led by the characters and she's feeding all of this in, and you're building this world as you go. So it's definitely a tale well told, simply told, and in a world that you can really get caught up in.
I read her other one.
Right, she's written some other stuff that's more set in a post-apocalyptic world.
More sort of.
Have you read her too?
Yes, I've read Trail of Lightning as
that's
well.
The one I read.
But it's not second world fantasy, which is what this is, where it's like a totally different, different world.
Yeah.
It does sort of remind me of a book I actually talked on this show in the past called The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri, which is similarly a big, like, epic fantasy book set in a different world, but that one is very heavily influenced by like the Indian subcontinent and mythologies and
again, not set there, but feels like
and also uses words from like that we would be familiar with. It talks about like actual food that we eat, that people eat, and actual things, but uses it in this other context to connect.
I think it helps to make it not feel so kind of far out, like some of these things, it does. It grounds it in some kind of reality that you can immediately
hook into.
And it seems we're getting some more sort of big fantasy books that are rooted in a non-medieval Europe place, which is very, which is for people like me who love a map and appendix type fantasy book, is exciting, because sometimes reading the same type of ones gets you're like, I've already.
It's nice to have some new ones.
Well, it's nice to explore other cultures, that's a way into.
And it gives cultures. It just makes them more interesting. Like that, it's just more interesting sometimes to not just have the same sword and
that get
like same
tired.
Sword and sorcery type things. Yes.
I like
wizards and all that stuff.
The Lightning one because it's just set in the States, in the reservation.
This is the Trail of Lightning. It's
Trail
set
of Lightning,
on a Native American reservation.
Right.
Which is kind of the last place standing after an apocalypse.
That's right.
Is that So that's another setting.
And it's not the same in the clans. There's no clans. It's mostly one woman.
That's more like there's a mystery to that one as well, right?
That seems much more in line with sort of an urban fantasy type book. Even if it is post-apocalyptic, it's much more in line.
Not urban area, but
what we call urban fantasy does not always take place in urban areas. But more it's strange. But like where it's sort of like a person investigating supernatural occurrences situation, as opposed to a like second world fantasy where you are like, here is an entirely new culture, world, place that I have made up entirely
made up for you to live in for a while.
What I found fun too was that because it's Native American, it brings back Coyote, the trickster, which I always love to read.
He's a good one.
Coyote stories. So that was fun.
All right, so that's Rebecca Brownhorst's Black Sun, and then the second book is Fevered Star. And now we're going to move on to something a little more contemporary.
Yes, we're gonna move to. So I'm here to talk about Portrait of a Thief by Grace D. Lee. I don't have a copy of the book because it's so popular; it's been checked out. So, and it begins with a very intriguing question, which is, what would you do if you were sitting in a museum while it was robbed? So Harvard senior Will Chen discovers exactly what he would do as he works his afternoon job at the Sackler Museum at Harvard. One afternoon, a group of clearly well-trained thieves break in, steal some Chinese artifacts, and leave. At the same time this goes on, Will pockets a small jade tiger from it. And as the thieves leave, one of the thieves leaves a note in his pocket that says, "Nice pull." So they've noticed that he stole this thief. So he finds this card, and it eventually leads to an intriguing email and an offer of 5 tickets to Beijing with no explanation of why or how. Will, being an enterprising sort who is about to graduate from college but kind of unsure of what he's going to do after college, recruits 5 of his friends to fly to Beijing and find out what we're going to discuss at this point. There, they discover that they are being recruited by this is a real Chinese company called China Poly, which has connections to the Chinese military and owns a museum in Beijing, that they're being recruited to steal 5 bronze fountainheads from the old Summer Palace, which are held in museums not in China.
So they're stealing them back.
Back for China, but they are stealing them
from different places.
From different places around the world. Now, I will say this is drawn from reality. There is the old Summer Palace in Beijing was burned and looted during the Opium Wars, and there were 12 fountainheads, which represent the 12 animals of the Chinese zodiac. There are 5 that their locations are unknown, so they are not actually held in museums in the Western world. They don't. Some of them were thought to be sold and are held in private collections, but are not. Their locations aren't known, and all the ones that are known are actually held in China. A lot of them were purchased back in an auction that was held in France in I think it was 2009, where several of them came on the market and a bunch of them were bought. They are held in the China Poly Museum in Beijing, which they visit in the book while they're there.
Right.
So it does draw from reality, but this is fictionalized. You cannot go see any of them here in this country. You could see them in China, but they are. That's what they've been recruited, and if they achieve this, they will get $10 million.
Okay, so this is
really like life-changing money for he and his friends. So he's recruited sort of an archetypical heist team.
Ocean's 11.
Exactly, like Ocean's 11. He recruits from his own friends who are who are all like college students. So it is one of his oldest friends who's, in typical fashion, whose father is an art expert on Chinese art and works with the FBI to recover stolen Chinese art. His friend of Will's from undergrad who went to MIT, who dropped out of MIT to take a tech job in Silicon Valley as their hacker. Obviously, they need a hacker. His younger sister, who is a junior at Duke, who's sort of a chameleon con person, can change into whoever she wants to be, and her roommate, who is an ace getaway driver. So team established. They go to Beijing, they hear this offer, they decide, yes, we will do these heists. And so they set off sort of planning how to do that. It borrows from heist movie tropes, obviously, which is, of course, the only thing that these people know how to relate this to, because they are not thieves. So they are just watching.
So are they like watching Fast and Furious?
They are watching like Ocean's 11. They are watching Fast and the Furious to try to figure out how to steal things. And it's like, that's not how this actually works, but that is what they are trying to do. So there's some globetrotting. They do actually do some thievery. We see some heists happen, which the different ways that they do actually sort of blunder and luck out into making it work. But they're very exciting. And I think that a lot Lee wraps sort of this story of coming of age, and also of coming into sort of what it means to be. A lot of this is heavily rooted in, they're all Chinese American, so it's very heavily rooted in what it means to be Chinese American, and what is your connection to China, what is your connection to America, who are you supposed to be, who do you want to be, which is a lot of Will's issues, sort of why he takes this up in a way, is that he knows that there's a person that his parents want him to be when he graduates from Harvard in just a few months, that is supposed to be this perfect Chinese American child who he should go on to be. But does he want to be that person?
Right.
Yeah. Is that the life he wants? And maybe he wants a more exciting life that involves
Well, he definitely is choosing the
it involves stealing
the opposite of
stealing
that.
art. Yeah, so it's that's really the central question, and I really love the characters in this
Could
book.
put it on his resume. Expertise on stolen Chinese
Well,
art.
he is an art history major, so there is a part that involves him applying for jobs that, and I do think that's really, the character work is really interesting, and I really liked the characters in this, and I think that it's specific in that it is talking about the Chinese American experience, but anyone can pull things about sort of the unmoored feeling of graduating from college and not knowing what you want to do and knowing what you want to do. And that connection is really, really adds a lot to the book. And I think that it's very well done and well written, and just this, like, the character dynamics are interesting and spiky, and there's a little bit of romance in there.
It's not romance?
Yeah, there is. It's not the main focus, but there is like some nice slow burn threads in there as well, because obviously that's a very important part of becoming who you want to be, and like accepting who you are, and that. And I think it's a fun read, and
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
That does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't have any really good read-alikes, because I think so much of the appeal of it is rooted in that character dynamic. And so there are other heist books, and there's other sort of art theft books, but a lot of them are not as detailed into this connection between.
No, it's nice when you find something that is a new combination of elements that you've.
Well, that's connecting to the culture. Right?
Yes,
that's involved in culture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's very, and I do think the marketing for the book used sort of a comparison that was like Ocean's 11 meets The Farewell. And I do think that if you sort of that is actually a pretty apt comparison.
Right,
so it is sort of a good. So if that sounds appealing to you, I would pick it up. But it ends really well, and it's a very exciting book, so I really recommend it as that.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it does.
And it's a quick read too. It's not.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. It's not a huge book.
It's not a huge book. It's very. I don't have a copy, but it's not super thick, and it reads fast because it's exciting. It's a page turner. It actually is a page turner.
Great. Yeah. Sounds like a lot, of fun. All right. So that's called
It's called Portrait of a Thief.
Portrait of a Thief.
Portrait of a Thief.
Portrait of a Thief. Yep.
A title which means as you read the book, it means multiple things.
Yes. I can see the characters as well as the
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And I just have a couple minutes, and I want to let you all know about the fact that we have a new kind of browsing, what we're calling our browsing collection, set up in our living room, which is the gold room where the magazines are in the library. And it consists now, there are a whole selection of coffee table books that you can sit and browse. They're beautiful books. People are really enjoying being able to sit in the comfy chairs and look at the beautiful pictures. And they're on a huge range of subjects. And then we've also got there our short story collections and our newest poetry books. So the kinds of things that you might like to just pull off the shelf and take a quick browse through before you check them out. Of course, all of these are able to be checked out. You don't have to just read them in the cold room, but you can, and there's plenty to browse. So come into the library and check those out. And also come see us at the reference desk if you have any needs for your next read. We're always happy to help with that, and we in fact welcome it and love that as a break in our day. So until next time, we'll see you here again on Book Buzz. And this is me, Karen Stern, signing off.